you've got to grind, grind, grind at that grindstone. Though childhood slips like sand through a sieve, and all too soon they've up and grown, and then they've flown, and it's too late for you to give.
Hello and welcome once again to the Cine-Files, where this week we are continuing our exploration of the incredible film Mary Poppins. My name is Steve Morris. I am a filmmaker and directing instructor in Los Angeles, California.
Hello, everyone. My name is John Roca. I'm a writer, producer, and host here in San Diego, California.
And last week we said, if you leave us a nice 5-star review on our Apple Podcast page, we would be happy to read it on our next episode. And here I have one from Social Gala Heart, I believe is the name, and they give us 5 stars and say, I discovered your podcast while researching a movie for my film class. One podcast in and I was hooked. Both my husband and I love listening to you. In fact, we save special occasion episodes for road trips.
Wow.
Which I think is really cool.
That's very sweet.
Yeah, the insight and film knowledge make listening to the two of you as if I'm attending a master class. And this person recently changed their major to a double major with film.
Wow.
And they saw Mary Poppins in the theater in 1964. It's one of their favorites. And they say, thank you again for this Mary Poppins podcast. I loved it.
Spitspot.
Spitspot. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
And I have one more minor correction I would like to make before we jump back into the film, which is, we talked a lot about certain opinions that Walt Disney had that might have been anti-Semitic or homophobic. And we got a bit of pushback online, which I appreciate, that apparently there are a lot of people, including the Sherman brothers, who obviously were Jewish, that have said that wasn't true, that he was not anti-Semitic at all. And I hope that we were wrong, and that because I really admire Walt Disney, and I don't like to think negative things about people I admire.
I don't mind it, but I understand. Especially in the creative world. I mean, it's tough. It's tough. But I've always been told that he did, and I've seen some allusions to it in other things. So, just because he worked, again, this is a very clear thing that is making the conversation more nuanced. Just because they're married to someone of color or a Jewish person, just because they have family members who are Jewish, just because, they're friends or work with people, doesn't necessarily mean that they weren't anti-Semitic, So I respect the pushback, though, and I think everyone's entitled to their opinion. From what I've seen and read, I'm of the belief of one way, and from what these people are pushing back on, they're of a belief of another way, and and that's totally fine. The man's not here to defend himself one way or another. So
apparently his brain is frozen somewhere, and maybe we can pull that out and see if it has anything to say.
Ed Williams, yes.
I mean, like all things that we'd like to do on the Cine-Files is to have a nuanced conversation. And what I'll say is, like, these things are not binary, and depending on when you were raised and where you were, is that, saying that he had some anti-Semitic beliefs, being a guy growing up when and where he did, is not a surprising thing, because most of the country had those beliefs. But anyway, we're not here to talk about anti-Semitism.
Right, exactly. There are examples with the Three Little Pigs thing. The wolf is a Jewish peddler. They welcomed Leni Riefenstahl to the studio back in 1938 when stuff was going on there. Of course, the Dumbos, Black Crows, Song of the South. So, the record for Disney isn't the greatest. And so you could maybe interpret that through the prism of that. But you could also say, at those times, how many people were really that advanced in understanding the nuances like we do now,
Yeah. I mean, well, this is the ongoing conversation that irritates people sometimes when they listen to us, but it's the one that I want to continue to have.
Absolutely.
How do we feel about things today? Yeah. How were things different then? How do we interpret what we see?
Yeah. It's a conversation we want to have for sure. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. But currently the conversation I want to have is about Jane and Michael leaving with Mary Poppins on their next adventure. Mm-hmm. Dad was a little bit grumpy today. I think he's not quite as happy about how things are going with Mary Poppins.
Yeah.
But the kids are awfully happy. The thing is, right now, the adventure they're going on is to go buy some fish and run some errands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I don't think anything exciting is going to happen at all, except that Andrew comes up. And Andrew, of course, is the dog. And apparently Mary Poppins can talk to dogs.
Well, yes, of course. There's not a moment to lose. I'll go straight away. And thank you very much.
And that leads her off to someone who's in some kind of trouble. And we head down to a doorway in a little alleyway, and Bert answers the door.
I came over the moment I heard.
Well, how is he?
I never seen him as bad as this, and that's the truth. How about them? It's contagious, you know.
And we're going, what kind of horrible disease are we about to experience?
Yeah.
The disease we're going to experience is Edwin.
Yeah.
Who is, I can't not smile watching Edwin.
I love to laugh, loud and long and clear. I love to laugh. It's getting worse every year.
He's so good in this, and obviously the voice of the Mad Hatter in Alice in Wonderland. Such a phenomenal actor in so many different projects around that time, And,
yeah.
It was great to see him pop up, and it's just one scene. It's just one scene, and he is, and they tried to do this in the Mary Poppins Returns thing with Meryl Streep, but in her character. But in this scene, I think it really works, and it's funny and joyful, and the back and forths are hilarious. And Mary is put off by the whole thing, but then eventually joins in, and then eventually has to stop all this because they've got to go home. And I love that. And Dick Van Dyke does great stuff here, laughing through this all, and the song here is really sweet as well. And just the idea that if you can find humor in things, if you can find some way to laugh amidst all the drama, you can find a way to kind of float for a little bit before you have to come back down to earth and deal with it. And that can be such a lifesaver when you're dealing with a lot of stressful things.
You just made me realize something that should have been obvious, but I didn't think about it in quite this way. I've been thinking about in the way that this movie is about the tension between what you're supposed to do, Dad and the bank, and having fun and taking joy in the moment, enjoying the world.
Right.
And that is literally exactly what this song is.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
If you take joy in the moment, you float up in the air.
Right.
But we do actually have real responsibilities, and we have to have tea and stuff like that, and that will tend to bring us down.
The more the glee, the more we're a merrier we are.
By the way, Edwin was a vaudeville actor. His name on the act was The Perfect Fool. That was who he played. Walt was a huge fan of his.
Sure.
This scene, again, we don't think of Mary Poppins as being a special effects movie like Star Wars, but it totally is.
Right.
This one is part of it. Several things that they're doing. First of all, obviously they're on wires.
Yeah.
Second thing is the whole set is on a gimbal, so that it's not that we ever see it rotate, but what they would do is they would do a scene where it's rotated one way, and then they would do a scene where it's rotated a different way. Right. So their angles are changing as they do it. And then one of the things I find really funny, you'll notice when they are sitting, that they're actually sitting as if at tea in a sitting position. And I never thought about it, but it's hard to have someone in a seated position when they're flying around on wires, because on wires, you're wearing like a harness that's attached to your back.
Right.
So you would have to fold your legs like with a crunch, an abdominal crunch, to hold them in that position. So what they did, every actor had to have a mold made of their butt so that they created a perfect cupping seat to attach the wires to for them to sit on that is underneath their clothing.
Wow.
That is what's helping them to sit like that.
Wow.
And they're doing flips and they're doing all sorts of crazy stuff. By the way, the actor playing Michael, terrified of heights.
Oh, no.
And finally they said, look, we'll give you a dime every time you go up there. Kid made good money, apparently, on this thing. At one point, they forgot them, and the whole crew went to lunch, leaving them all hanging from the ceiling.
Oh, my gosh. Just I'm sure.
And just one more thing about the song. You know that one of the signs of a great musical is when your favorite song changes.
Mm-hmm.
Is that when I was a kid, this was my favorite song. I loved this so much. I thought it was so fun and so catchy and so funny. I love the joke. A man with a wooden leg named Smith. I think that's a classic dad. When I was 6 years old, I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, yeah. And Ed Wynn, his son is Keenan Wynn, who had been in Dr. Strangelove and some westerns and what have you. So, and certainly a good Lee Marvin film called Point Blank. You're a big Lee Marvin fan, aren't you? So it's this is certainly a family with some real talent to it, for sure, with the Wynns. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask the same question. Did Mary Poppins know they were going to end up on the ceiling?
Yes.
Mary. So it's just going to happen. Yeah. So all of the reluctance and scolding them. You know what's really interesting, by the way? If you only take what Mary Poppins says and not what they do or where they go, she is in complete agreement with Dad through the whole movie.
Yes, in certain ways, yes. But she's not imposing the discipline that the dad would have done.
Yeah, but she's saying this is disgraceful behavior, and no, I won't do that. And of course, I wouldn't race a horse, and I wouldn't do that. And this is all silly, which is what Dad says.
Right, exactly.
And what is it that's going to bring them down from the ceiling? Thinking of something sad.
They got to go home.
Oh, that is sad.
Oh, that's sad. That's the saddest thing I ever heard.
It's interesting. We come back with Admiral Boom, and Dad is coming home, and it's obviously that something is the matter.
Is anything the matter, Banks? Banks!
What is upsetting Dad?
Again, he's sensing that things are out of control. Things are not under his control. Things are kind of spiraling out. The Mary Poppins stuff is bothering him. He's just kind of unsettled generally overall.
I wonder if things are not that good at the bank, because he's coming home upset.
Right.
But it's not just that he was upset at the kids in the morning.
Yeah. I mean, how many fathers come home upset all the time from their jobs? So standard stuff. Right.
Well, and that's what Bert is going to say later on. He describes him as in a cage surrounded by money.
Yeah.
And looking at his bosses, because we're going to meet his bosses in a few minutes. Do you think that'd be a fun place to work?
No, judging from who's in charge, as we find out, even though it's Dick Van Dyke in disguise, I would not be happy to be in a situation like that.
And I will tell you, having had a rough day at work and having to come home and put the face on for the kid, it can be hard, and because you have to,
of course,
when your 5-year-old goes, Dad, isn't this the greatest drawing ever? And you look at some scribbles and you're like, no, this thing sucks. What's wrong with you? Right. But you don't say those things. You act the way you're supposed to. But Dad's going to have a problem with that. Michael is very excited to tell him the wooden leg named Smith joke.
Yeah.
But the actor had a real hard time with his lines. And this is a little kid, and he kept blowing it. Oh. And the director, Stevenson, would say when he blew a line, that's okay, do it again. And Matthew, the actor, did not like hearing this over and over again as he's blowing his lines. And he said to the director, if you say that one more time, I'm going to kick you. He once again blows the line. Yeah. The director says, that's okay, do it again. And Michael kicked him.
Wow.
So he kicked the director.
Nice. You can only get away with it as a kid. Yeah,
I generally wouldn't advise kicking Stanley Kubrick. It's no matter, even if it is your 100th take and you're Scatman Crothers.
That's true.
He's just going to make you do it again. And he definitely, but Dad doesn't like hearing these jokes. He doesn't like hearing about tea on the ceiling. And he's definitely upset with Mary Poppins and says,
Mary Poppins, I very much regret what I must say to you.
And the kids think she's going to get fired, and everyone else thinks she's going to get fired. Mom wants to get out. She didn't even want to be here, but he asked her to stay, which I find interesting.
George, are you certain you know what you're doing?
I believe I do, Winifred. A British bank is run with precision. A British home requires nothing less. Tradition, discipline, and rules must be the tools. Without them, disorder, chaos, moral disintegration. In short, you have a ghastly mess.
I quite agree.
And this back and forth is so funny because it leads to Mary Poppins turning the tables on him by saying eventually, well, that means the kids are going to join you at work tomorrow, which is absolutely not what he wanted to happen. But because he started going down this path and she is supremely smarter than he is, she led him to where he almost was like, I did say that? Did I say that? At the point that he's asking his wife, did I say that? So that speaks to how can I say, the intelligence of Mary and how long Mary's been around. And also because Mary has an end game here, which is getting the dad to realize that he is missing out on the time with his kids. And in a way, this film is very male focused in that way, even though you've got a female at the lead, it is a female's name, but Mary's not going on a journey, as we spoke about in the first part of our discussion. There is no arc for Mary Poppins. She is who she is at the beginning and at the end. And at the end, she may have more love for these children than when she first appeared, but at the end, she's still the same Mary Poppins. The dad is the one going on the journey we spoke about. But I always thought, watching it this time around, I felt like the mom should have gotten more of a journey as well, which we'll touch on later on. But seeing her sit there and be in the middle and almost a little subservient to her husband in a way, sitting in the smaller, lower chair, I found that to be a really interesting decision at the time for a film like this, considering she's a suffragette.
I think it is not even just a little subservient. Yeah. I think that is mostly what's going on in the movie. And I think the movie 100% works. I think Mom 100% works. And I never thought about it until watching it this time. Yeah. She actually is as disconnected from the kids. The difference is she can see it in ways that Dad can't because she has more sensitivity to the kids.
Sure.
But behavior-wise, she should have as much a lesson to learn as Dad's.
Yeah.
But that's not, yeah.
She hands the kids off to Bert, who she just met 30 seconds ago. So it's those things that I think now in 2023, if you were to make Mary Poppins now, you would have to adjust or fix those elements of the story so they're much more equal because, she comes off as kind of distant and aloof from the kids. And the father is the one that needs to be more at the journey. So it's a very male-focused film, even though you've got a female at the lead.
Well, and the movie is also about, and I know this is a word that some people don't like us bringing up, but this film is very much about privilege because the thing about being a privileged person like Mr. Banks, there's all of the sort of you were born on third base and think you hit a triple. Yeah. Because of the position that Mr. Banks was born into, I don't think that he came up from nothing. I think he came from a family that also had a position.
Right.
He thinks he is smarter than he actually is.
Yes, of course.
And so he thinks he's in charge and he's smarter than his wife and smarter than everybody else and smarter than all the nannies because of the position that he's in. When in fact, as you said, Mary Poppins is 27 steps ahead of him.
Oh, yeah.
And to be real clear, not only, I believe, is she manipulating him to have the kids go within the bank, does she know everything that's going to happen? Is she also manipulating the kids to do the bird feeder because she knows the dad's going to want the tuppence because she knows they're going to cause a run on the bank?
Oh, that's a good question when she's singing about the old lady with the birds. Maybe. Yeah, it's very possible. Mary seems to have this whole thing planned out. Who is the one person that could appeal to Michael? This woman here. She sang about her, so they're more attuned to see her as they head to that area on their way to the bank. And so you set up this conflict that later bears fruit inside the bank. So yes, very possible. You know what? You could look at this movie as a complete revenge film with Mary Poppins enacting revenge on the owner of the bank. That the whole point of the movie was
sure
for her to make him laugh until he died.
So her plan is killing
him.
Mr. Dawes, Elder Mr. Dawes.
Killing Dick Van Dyke.
Oh my God.
Old Mr. Dawes. You could absolutely, through a certain prism, a Dutch angle, see the movie through that whole, you can make a case for that point.
Well, it's so funny because I never really thought about this, because I just watched the movie and I love the movie and it's great.
Yeah.
But Mary Poppins, if she is in fact ahead of everybody on everybody, she knows, she has to know that guy's going to die.
She knows Dawes is going to die.
Because if he doesn't die, then Banks doesn't get rehired, in which case things are not all okay. And she is making everything okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Feed the Birds.
Let's do it.
So several things. First of all, again, my opinions on songs changed over the years. When I was a kid, I hated this song. To me, I put this song, and again, we talked about how movies came out once a year and you watch them on TV.
Yes.
I put this song with Cheer Up Charlie from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, which is the song that I always like. I'll go get a snack and go to the bathroom because I found it because I wanted the fun, happy, upbeat songs.
Right.
As I've grown older, I've come to realize that not only is this a great song, it might be the greatest song in the whole show.
Wow.
It is. Well, and what's funny about, so it's Walt's favorite song.
Oh, okay.
Walt would call the Sherman Brothers in after a hard day's work late at night. And basically, it sounds like he was Ilsa in Casablanca saying, play it again. And they would play Feed the Birds for him.
Wow.
This was like a regular thing that went on for years. Walt had a tough day and he'd call in the Sherman Brothers and they'd sing Feed the Birds. Jax sang along to the whole song. He loved the song.
Oh, that's nice.
Though her words are simple and few, listen, listen, she's calling to you. Feed the birds, tuppence a bag, tuppence, tuppence, tuppence a bag.
What I think is interesting about the song is what does it mean? Let me ask the question this way.
Yeah.
What does it mean to feed the birds philosophically?
Well, I think it's to notice the people that we don't notice, right? I mean, certainly as we are in one of the worst homeless crises we've ever seen in the history of our country, I think this song has an extra special resonance when I was watching it this time, because it's such a terrible thing to see happening to so many people. Certainly every time I go back in LA, it feels like it gets worse and worse every time I drive up there, and I just feel absolutely devastated for these people and the conditions that they're living in. And so I think what she was trying to say is that, like earlier she said about some people who can't see past the tip of their nose, and which is what the guy says to them or the dad says to them as he's walking them to pass the woman with the birds. He says, "You think you can't see past the front of my nose?" And so I think the song is very much about like making sure that people who are watching the movie understand and remember that there are people you pass every day, and you ignore them because you have to get on with your day or you don't want to deal with it. But the truth is, they're suffering, and it demands your attention, and it should command your attention.
I think there's so many messages, like for me, because I totally agree with you that's there. Notice the natural world is there because it's about the birds.
Right, the birds.
Notice the world around you. It's an act of compassion both for the bird lady and for the natural world.
Yeah,
and it's also spend your money on joy. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like for an experience. Whereas Dad is about invest your money to get a return, to get more money. And so I think and remember we had Bert saying, I do what I like and I likes what I do.
Yeah.
Like that is also about, it's not about making money. It's about enjoying something, The other thing about this song, and I didn't know who the bird lady is. And as soon as they started talking about her, I went, holy shit, of course who it is. It is Jane Darwell who's mom in Grapes of Wrath.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Who had acted in more than 170 films. She was retired, and she won the Oscar for Grapes of Wrath, by the way.
Right.
She was 86. She was in the Actors Home, which I don't know how many people know that there is the Actors Home, because a lot of people would even be stars, like well-known movie stars, and then work dries up and the money is dried up and they're in deep trouble. And so there's a place to take care of old actors. And that's where Jane Darwell was. Yeah. It was Walt's idea to make her the bird lady. She said, no, I am retired.
Yeah.
Walt drove to the Actors Home to convince her. And as we know, Walt can be very persuasive. And he brought her to set and just treated her like a queen.
Wow.
And this was the last day of shooting of the movie.
Oh, wow.
Was her scenes.
That's great.
And this is the last film she made.
Right, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because she's talking about a retirement to come be in it.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah, that makes sense.
And Grapes of Wrath's a really powerful movie for me. And so like the fact that I had never made that connection is, something.
Yeah.
So let's head to the bank.
Okay.
Dad is nervous because he's worried that his kids will behave well.
Remember that a bank is a quiet and decorous place, so we must be on our best behavior.
But I thought it was your bank.
Yes, well, I'm one of the younger officers, so in a sense it is. Sort of.
I think the way the bank's family and his staff see him is actually pretty different from who he is at work.
Yeah, because he is the king of the castle at his house, but he's not the king of the castle at all or has any kind of pull or power at the bank. So it adds an even more interesting element to the performance here because he has to have and retain the power of king in
Exactly.
his house because he does not have it at work. And that happens for better or worse, depending on the father, in a lot of households where the father needs to feel like they are the most important person in the house because they are shit upon or made to feel lesser than or inferior constantly for hours a day at work.
A, I couldn't agree more. And B, so I just read or listened to this book called The Power Code. And The Power Code is a book written by some women scientists about the way men and women perceive power differently, how men and women exercise power, both in their relationships and at work, and what things we can learn from it. And it's a good book, and it's obviously written from a certain point of view. And it's also obvious anytime you're talking about men and women or things like that, it's, they're generalizations that don't hold up to all people.
Right.
But the big thing that I learned in listening to it is that I think about power like a woman does, according to this book. And what they said is that in general, men tend to think about power as power over other people.
Mm-hmm.
I have power to make you do something.
Right.
And that women tend to think of power as power to accomplish a thing. I have the power to do this thing. Not necessarily. And so, the difference between collaborative power versus status power and dominance power and things like that. And there's a lot of what the book is about.
Yeah.
Now, there also we could have a whole short and talk about it, which wasn't my point. But I do think that Dad is definitely he is dominated at work by people who have power over him.
Yeah.
And then when he comes home, it's just what you said. I need to exert my power over the people in the house.
Yeah. 100%. 100%.
Mary Poppins sure was right to sing that song the night before, because there's the bird lady and Michael has his tuppence and wants to feed the birds.
Waste your money on a lot of ragamuffin birds? Certainly not.
But Mary Poppins...
I am not interested in what Mary Poppins says, nor do I wish to keep hearing her name for the remainder of the day. Now come along.
So first of all, he's Mary Poppins'd out.
Right.
Second, has Dad ever fed the birds?
No, not even once.
I don't think so either.
I will not permit you to throw your money away. When we get to the bank, I shall show you what may be done with your tuppence, and I think you'll find it extremely interesting.
Is feeding the birds throwing your money away?
Don't ask me. I'm not going to answer that question.
What's so funny, I've been Dad so many times. I've been Mr. Banks so many times with my son because he just wants to spend money on everything. And I'm like, we must invest your tuppence wisely at the bank.
I think you have to find the balance.
That's what
this film is really all about. Because remember at the end, she doesn't say, "Oh, poo-poo, you took the job back at the bank." Like, it's about balance.
Yeah.
Finding the moments to enjoy your children and taking a stock about all the things that exist around you that are worth noticing in the world. And also doing your job and understanding you have to pay bills and whatever and providing support. So, yeah.
I think we spend so much time thinking in a binary term and that this side is right and this side is wrong that we forget the thing that you just said. It's totally about balance. And I always think about like the aphorisms, like the Poor Richard's Almanac sayings, is that if you listen to them, it's like, there are the ones that are a stitch in time saves 9 and the early bird gets the word. And there are a lot about hard work and discipline and committing yourself. And there's also all work and no play make Jack a dull boy.
Yeah.
And they're both true. Like if it's all play and no work, Jack ain't going to eat.
Yeah.
Right,
exactly. Yeah.
But he should play too. And you should feed the birds.
You should absolutely feed the birds.
Sometimes.
Not always.
Because sometimes what you're about to hear is fat birds. Because we head into the bank and he's introducing his children, and then we get to meet old Mr. Dawes, played by Dick Van Dyke.
Tuppence?
So good.
He begged to do this. This was all Dick Van Dyke's idea.
Oh, I'm sure he did. I'm sure he was like, just look, let me have some fun here. Yeah.
So, and remember how I said there were many things that happened in the movie that were very real for the kids, like the tricks with stuff coming out of her bag.
Yeah.
They had no idea this was Dick Van Dyke.
Really? Oh, wow.
Didn't tell them. He stayed in character all the time.
Yeah.
They were terrified of him, and also terrified that he was going to fall down and die because they thought he was this unbelievably old man. I love the bit with him like not being able to step down the step. Like all that stuff is so good.
That's why he wanted to do it. He, in his mind, I'm sure he had already constructed the bits and the moments and all the stuff that he would do with it if he would get a chance to do it. So yeah, he did a really good job.
Here's another thing he would do. So he's in his makeup, and it was time because this is days of the studio where you would go eat in the commissary.
Yeah.
So he would stay in his makeup to go eat in the commissary, which it probably took him a couple hours to get in the makeup. So it makes sense he'd stay in it.
Oh,
but
right.
as he's walking through the Disney lot, on the Disney lot, like they do at Universal and at Warner Brothers, is their tours. And so there would be a tram that was driving by, and he would make sure he would wait to make sure that the timing when the tram was coming, that he would be crossing the street in front of the tram when the tram was there. And he would do it excruciatingly slow as the terrible old man. And everyone in the tram is like waiting. And then the tram would go past him. And then he would sprint full speed past the tram to go to the commissary.
It's hilarious.
Isn't it?
Oh my gosh.
I believe Dick Van Dyke was a hoot.
An actor loves a stage, man.
Yeah.
No matter where it is.
And as we go into this song called Tuppence, again, it's always funny when I hear something that should have been obvious but never occurred to me, is the inspiration for the Sherman Brothers for this song is Gilbert and Sullivan.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Perfect sense.
And you'll achieve that sense of conquest as your affluence expands.
I don't know if you've had a conversation with finance people, but I have several times. And there's a certain point where your eyes just glaze over, and they are so excited to talk about the recurring interest rate that will double over this time, and that if they tax loss harvest in order to transport something, it will compensate for this other investment, which when it's like, what the fuck is it? Well, I don't know what you're talking about. And that is what's happening with the kids in this song.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love as they're just getting more and more excited with things like
Dams across the Nile.
The ships, tell them about the ships.
Fleets of ocean greyhounds.
More, tell them more.
Majestic self-amortizing canal.
How it fires the imagination.
And the kids are just like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't understand what's happening.
I like that they went slow with this. Like the, how can I say this? The dance sequences are not overtly big.
Yeah.
They're small little movements around like a box square, which I thought was great. You know, it gives you the feeling of claustrophobia, not being able to get out, you know?
Oh yeah. They're totally advancing on them. I totally see why these kids are scared. What's really interesting is to watch David Tomlinson, because his agenda, the first idea of this was the kids are going to come to the bank and see how important I am at my work, and the importance of work and the importance of the work that I do. That's the intention. And as he's heading to the bank, he starts to go, well, you kids have to be on good behavior because I'm about to get judged. He wasn't thinking about him getting judged.
Yeah.
And now with this Tuppence thing and Michael resisting, suddenly he gets scared.
Yeah.
Because it's very clear, I need my kids to not just agree to this thing, but happily agree to this thing.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to look bad in front of my boss.
Yeah.
And so there's like a desperation that happens as they're advancing on these kids.
Yeah.
By the way, I love that Dick Van Dyke licks his lips as before he's going to take, just looking at the Tuppence, which is, a couple of pennies or whatever.
Yeah.
That's how much he wants this money.
Looking at the money, he salivates. Yeah.
And it is also very clear that Michael does not give him the money willingly, that he grabs it out of his hand while Michael was thinking about maybe giving it to him.
Welcome to our joyful family of investors.
And Michael yells,
Give it back! Give me back the money!
and Michael starts a run on the bank.
Yeah, this is great.
Any other movies that you think about when you see a run on the bank?
Certainly It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah, that's all I can think about.
And Dog Day Afternoon. Well, no, it's a different run on the bank.
Very different situation. Also a movie that we should probably do at some point.
I agree with you.
I've been thinking about that. Did you watch it recently, or?
I watched it. I went on a little bit of a Pacino run a few months ago, just rewatching or watching stuff I hadn't seen before, and I hadn't seen that one in a bit. So I was like, let's take a look at this one. It's not one of my favorite Pacino films. I like the film. I don't revere it in the way other people do, but I do like the film. You know?
And his performances.
Oh my God.
Amazing.
So what do you think this whole scene is supposed to be about? Is this an indictment on money? Is this an indictment on the banks? An indictment on the idea of a boring job that is repetitive and removes your humanity so much so that you are willing to let an old man take the treasures of a child in his hands? Like, what do you take away from this whole scene? Like, why is it in the movie?
It's so funny because the thought I had when we talked about it in our last episode, this is like 4 years before the height of the 60s and the hippie generation. I genuinely went, man, I think kids that watched Mary Poppins, it's a total condemnation of the establishment. I think it's not just, yes, you and I are talking about balance, and that's what I think we believe.
Right.
But I don't think the movie is that balanced. I think the movie is Mary Poppins stuff is fun and good, and the world that Dad lives in is not good.
Yeah.
It is right there on the edge of evil. You know, that's how it feels to me.
Okay.
How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, I wonder about it because, again, Mary doesn't stop him from going back to the bank. Mary doesn't enact vengeance on these other people at the bank and the sons and all of that. And I just wonder if the whole point of the scene is to show you the dangers of removing balance from your life. Invest, obviously, but don't invest everything. Keep some for other things. So finding that balance of how to work your money, how to use your money overall, but then also how much control people who are in control of the money are of society. And how if one thing, one misinterpretation can spread like wildfire, and the next thing you know, you've got people at each other's throats. You know, so I find that to be a condemnation, a little bit of a condemnation on money and the misuse of people who have that money. You know?
Well, I will tell you. I think I mentioned before on the show that I listened to this book about Walt and the designing of Disneyland.
Oh yes.
Really good book. And the thing is, I don't think Walt cared that much about making money. I think Walt wanted to make money and certainly made a lot of money.
Right.
But so many of the fights in the design of Disneyland was he wanted ordinary people, ordinary families with their kids to be able to have these magical experiences and it not break the bank. Wow. There was so much where he fought to keep the prices low.
Right.
I think the parking lot was either free or cost like 25 cents for like 30 years. And he just refused to let them raise the prices, you know, because he would be so angry about what Disneyland and Disney World and these places are like today, where they just will bleed you dry.
Right.
So like things like at Disneyland now, you can pay extra money to get ahead in the lines.
Yes.
Walt was 100% against that. That came up when he was around. He's like, absolutely not. There should be no elitism at Disneyland. It should be for the highest priority is for an ordinary middle class or low middle class family to be able to have a great experience. Otherwise, I don't want to make this park. Like that's what Walt was saying over and over again.
Those days are way over.
Yeah, because Disneyland will cost you a fucking fortune.
It will. But I also think that there is karma in that situation. I think there's something about Disney. Like there's a little bit of karma with Disney. If you mess with prices too much, the karma of it damages the brand. Like we just saw with Galaxy Star Cruiser, right? They were offering, what was it, like $4,000 a night or $3,000 a night to stay in.
Something crazy.
Yeah, so stay in this like a version of a Star Wars ship or whatever, and have everybody around you completely in character 24/7. That eventually bit them in the ass. You know, Chapek wanted to raise the prices on everything and nickel and dime everybody. Those bands that they wear to get in to try to get to the rides, you have to get there at 6 a.m. Like those are those things that are how a money person thinks, right? So when you're watching the scene, Walt Disney is the kid, and everyone else are what happened after Disney passed away, and how they've manipulated the Disney situation in parks to be a nickel and dime situation, a price gouging situation for a lot of families, and create a level of elitism for sure. Or, some of these families go lose a lot of money going to do this stuff or go bankrupt doing this stuff just to please their kids, and people aren't that responsible with money.
Well, absolutely. And Disney, any place like casinos are brilliant at the hidden cost, of disconnecting you from money or making you spend money in unexpected ways.
Yeah.
And that can really fuck a family that doesn't have a lot of money when you show up at Disney. Because the thing is, you're going to show up and you go like, okay, I budgeted this. I know how much the tickets cost. I'm not staying in the Disneyland hotel. I'm staying across the street at this place. It's, like we budgeted some money for food, but they didn't. There's hidden costs that happen.
Yeah.
And there's and now I have like, let's say that someone who is like a wand maker pulls your kid out of the ride and gets them. This is your magical wand. That kid's going to fucking buy that wand. I know I switched from Disney to Universal.
Yeah.
But there was no way that you gave my child this amazing experience as the wand maker. I had to buy that wand. That's it.
Yeah, that's why I think I always told her, I hope I told you, I always told everybody, they're going to make you buy the wand they're going to pressure you to buy the wand.
Yeah.
You don't have to buy the wand. They're going to pressure you to buy the wand. And I remember because they didn't tell us that till way, way later in the situation. And to be fair, I'd never been picked when I went to see it in Orlando a couple of times. So I had no idea that they were trying to force you. It was only after we actually got into the room and were doing rehearsals that they brought on the people who would be who we would hand off the wands to, and they would take them into the next room. This is $50 now if you want the wand. And I can't tell you how many times I had people come up to me and say, I'm in character, by the way, stopping me as I'm walking back to the break room, like, hey, thanks for making me pay an extra $6. They should tell people that. And I had to respond in character with a British accent to the whole thing. You know what I'm saying? And so all I wanted to do was run from those situations.
Of course.
Because I mean, I don't mind confrontation. But I don't mind confrontation when I don't initiate the confrontation. Oh, I don't like confrontation when I don't initiate the confrontation. That really unsettles me, and I'm not prepared for it, and I'd rather leave the situation. Do you know what I'm saying? So I always try to come up with some reason to keep walking past them and be nice, but just find a way to keep walking past them. A lot of parents were pissed. A lot of parents were pissed.
Well, and I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No. I'm happy. It's years ago, man. Yeah.
But like, because this is like, I know I said it in the last episode of when the 2-year-old hands you the toy phone, you have to answer it and say hello. Yeah. Like, and I think, you do need to feed the birds sometimes. Mm-hmm. And then this is an example. It's, what's really funny is that is a feed the birds moment. The moment my son had with you when you were Ollivander is one of the great magical moments. And so for me, it was totally worth it to buy that wand.
Yeah.
It's actually a mix of feed the birds and I want your tuppence, because you know what I mean? Because it is a magical experience.
Yeah.
And the magical experience exists to get your fucking money.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. It really brings the two of them together. Anyway, from this moment in the bank and the run on the bank, we have the movie getting as scary and dark as it ever gets, with like a creepy old lady and a barking dog. And then the kids run into this giant of a man whose face is covered, who they don't know who it is. And guess what? The kids did not know this was Dick Van Dyke either.
Oh,
so when he grabbed them, they were genuinely freaked out.
Wow.
Leave her alone! Leave my sister alone!
Easy now, your old friend. They're gonna hurt you.
Bert, it's you.
In the flesh and at your service.
You're filthy.
Oh, perhaps a smudge or two. So happens that today I'm a chimney sweep.
Here's how the chimney sweep thing happened. Is Sherman Brothers are writing songs. There's a sketch artist in the room that's just drawing things. They have all the different Mary Poppins books that are spread out in the room. And the sketch artist is kind of thumbing through the books. And in one of the books, he sees the line that shaking the hand of a chimney sweep is lucky. And so he draws a chimney sweep just for fun because he saw that moment in the book.
Wow.
And the Sherman brothers look over and they like the drawing.
Right.
And that is where the song Chim Chimney comes from. And that is why Bert is a chimney sweep in this movie.
Wow. Circles within circles, wheels within wheels. Yeah.
Well, and I just, what I love is that people think the creative process is like, I decide to do this and then I execute that.
Yeah.
And that just isn't how create shit just happens. And an idea comes to you from a place and you explore that idea and it sends you down a particular road. And that's how you got there.
Bert will take care of you like I was your own father. Now, who's after you?
Father is.
What?
He brought us to see his bank. I don't know what we did, but it must have been something dreadful. He sent the police after us and the army and everything.
Michael, don't exaggerate. I like that.
And Bert is saying, your dad loves you. And they go, I don't think so. I don't think he likes us at all. It's a rough moment.
Yeah. But Bert's trying to get them to see. Because as a kid, you're only caught up with what, you're not emotionally mature as a kid. You're caught up with what's in front of your face, right? Like, what am I getting, what I'm not getting? And certainly coming out of this situation, the whole point of the movie is not to make the father the bad guy, right? I think a lot of fathers would be really pissed if Disney made a movie making fathers the bad guy, right? And so Bert has to kind of start the process of redemption for Mr. Banks by saying, no, your father does love you. You've got to see it. And the reason he's taking all this shit at work in a way is because he loves you.
It's so interesting just thinking about childhood and how childhood has evolved.
Yeah.
If I think I must have mentioned this at some point that if we talked about the theory that childhood is a recent invention.
Is this another one of your theories?
This is not one of mine. This is not a Steve theory. This is a thing.
All right.
And the basic idea is that it's only since around 1900 that most kids had time carved out to be a kid. Unless you were the prince, or a child of someone wealthy.
Right.
If you were 3 years old, it was your job to go collect the eggs or to milk the cow or to help mom in the kitchen. Kids started working at youth, and there was very little schooling for most of human history for most kids. Maybe you'd have a couple of years of school, but you'd have the summer off to work on the farm. The idea we have today is that for your first 18 years of life, you have this time called childhood that is devoted to you becoming an adult.
Mm-hmm.
That is kind of a recent invention for most humans. It didn't on the farm you went and worked in the fucking factory at 9 years old, You were out selling cockles or whatever on the seashore. That's what the idea of no, you are supposed to be a kid is kind of new. The idea that dad should be a loving parent involved in the childhood of their children, that actually might be pretty weird for Mr. Banks. You know what I mean?
Right.
In 1910. Yeah. That doesn't sound like my job.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Bert has a lot of sympathy for him, and he says,
one my heart goes out to is your father. There he is, in that cold, heartless bank day after day, hemmed in by mounds of cold, heartless money. I don't like to see any living thing caged up.
Father, in a cage?
Yeah, and says sometimes they make cages in the shape of banks. I love that, yeah.
What do you think? This goes to the thing you were saying before about how are we supposed to feel about banks and money and this.
Yeah, I don't think it's a coincidence that his name is Banks, his last name is Banks.
Yeah.
And so no, I think what Bert is basically saying here in this moment is I think in a way he's speaking to people out in the audience. It's easy to blame your parents. It's easy to make them the scapegoat when you don't have to think about all the things that they're doing to survive or all the things that they're sacrificing in order to be there or in order to put food on the table or put clothes on your back. And that's an interesting thing because you're right. Like in like I said, it's been over a century, as you say, because it's 1900. So we're in the 2022s or whatever. And so, or 2020s rather. And so you look at this, wow, it's a little bit over a century this has been happening. And it has progressed so quickly because we seek to have a society where there's more time for thought, more time for introspection, more time for meditation, more time for the ability to ponder the world, and essentially more time for what Mary was talking about, feeding the birds. Yeah. That's what we ultimately would like from our society. Most people, I think, would like a society where they have to work as little as possible, make as much money as possible, and live a comfortable existence and provide and be able to provide. I think most people would be happy with that kind of existence. There are the alpha-driven other people who want more. And I think what Bert is trying to do here is trying to offer perspective to the kids, but also in a way trying to offer perspective to the adults in the audience. Because Disney has always tried to work on both the adults and the kids at the same time. And so just trying to say, like, have you ever thought about what your father had to sacrifice in order to be able to be there? Maybe he wasn't the best dad, but did you lack for food? Did you lack for clothes? Did you lack for a place to live? You know, these are these things, the pressures that fathers are under, kids can't really grasp, you know.
Yes. And this next moment that he has where he talks about, you got your mother to look after you, Mary Poppins and Constable Jones and me.
Who looks after your father? Tell me that. When something terrible happens, what does he do? Fends for himself, he does. Who does he tell about it? No one. Don't blab his troubles at home. He just pushes on at his job, uncomplaining and alone and silent.
Dude, I'll tell you, at this particular moment in my life, this one kind of hit me hard, you know?
Yeah, we've talked off mic about some of the stuff that you're going through. And so, yeah, I could imagine.
You know, because, you know, I don't subscribe to, like, be a man and the man's job is to do this. And I don't subscribe to those traditional roles at all.
Yeah.
And yet I feel them. Like that I'm the one whose shoulders this is going to have to rest on in the end. Right. You know, that's how I feel, even if it's not realistic.
Yeah.
And the other thing, just to go back to this idea of the cage, and it just suddenly has occurred to me, what did Walt Disney carve out? He carved out a world where he and a whole bunch of people can work really, really hard and be really, really responsible, making magic things happen that are fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's like this. That is the balance that Mary Poppins is trying to find.
Yeah.
The balance Mary Poppins is trying to find is Walt Disney.
Yeah. I've had an idea for a movie for a long time, and I might be giving it away. So if anybody takes it,
we'll kill you.
I'll sue you because I'll be able to monitor the fact that you listen to this episode.
We know who you are.
You know who you are. No bank-sized cage can hold you. I've always thought it'd be interesting to, remember in the old days when they used to do those fantasy films where like people would run into rich people and hang out with them, right? Like The Pursuit of D.B. Cooper, where it's with Jason Robards as Howard Hughes, right. The guy playing, I forget the actor's name who played D.B. Cooper, but like the idea of running into someone and being stuck with them for a while, right? Hunters does a really nice job of it in the show on Prime Video, where you're dealing with the Hitler who survived World War II and what that would be like. But like, I always wondered what it would be like to write a movie where like an adult runs into Walt Disney and they have to spend like an hour, half hour, 45 minutes together on this crazy adventure. And then you get to ask Walt Disney all these questions, right? I liken it to the scene in Yesterday when he meets John Lennon, who hasn't been killed.
Right.
And I love that scene. I know there are a lot of you Beatles fans who don't, but I fucking love that scene. And so I cried every time in that scene. And so I would love to find, I would love to kind of write a script for something like that. And I wonder what that would be like to be able to ask all these questions of Disney that you've always wanted to ask him, and what was going on, what was the motivation, and actually see the other side of Walt other than the Tony Stark dad's approach that he always had introducing the wonderful world of Disney. Who was he? What was he really like? What were his downtimes? What were the things he was afraid of? What were the conversations that he only opened up to certain people about? Things like that. So I just would love to.
I've already ordered my ticket. If you ever make this film, I'm ready to go see it. It kind of reminds me in a weird way of the Mr. Rogers movie that Tom Hanks did, of like, here's this
Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. Yes.
Yeah. Enigmatic, which I think is a good movie. I don't love the movie, but
the documentary is great.
I liked it. Yeah. Same feeling exactly. It made me realize that I didn't actually ask you this question. Maybe I'll cut this out. Did you watch Saving Mr. Banks?
I have not, but I want to save that for a short.
Okay, we'll do it as a short.
Yes.
Because in some ways that is part of that movie.
Interesting. Okay.
And it's interesting that it's both Tom Hanks being Mr. Rogers and being Walt Disney.
Right.
But anyway, back into this story. The kids are with Bert. They go back home. And then we have the scene, which we kind of already discussed, which is the kids have obviously been through a traumatic thing, and mom is just trying to palm them off on people.
Yeah.
And then just go to literally the stranger says, hey, why don't you clean my chimney so you can watch after my kids? I got to go.
Yeah.
That is weird.
It is weird, right? And that's what I'm saying. It's a little frustrating because she never gets a comeuppance or a journey or an arc. And she's just, and I think we're watching it through 2023 eyes. Right?
I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah. I think people watched it back in the 60s or back in the 80s or 70s or whatever. She's growing up as a kid. Like, you don't focus, like, you just go, oh, here's the mom. She is supporting the right causes. The dad is
nice. Yeah. She seems nice, and dad's a problem.
And she seems kind of oblivious, and not in a mean way.
Yeah.
But now when you're looking at in 2023, you could see that this is a selfish woman who is of means, who has no problem pawning off her kids onto the help, for lack of a better term, and onto Bert, who she barely met, just so she can run out and feel good about these causes that she's fighting for, like the suffragette movement. It's very similar to how we've seen some people turn on white women in these progressive causes, especially in the Me Too movement. Certainly there was a lot of complaints from women of color against white women who came in and tried to take control of it and lead it when it had been a woman of color who initiated it and started the movement. And we've seen that as a complaint and we've seen some liberal white women do certain things that are like, wait, aren't you supposed to be progressive? Aren't you supposed to be? But when it affects what they want to do or their pocketbook, then all of a sudden they're not as progressive as you would think. You know, like I've seen writers, white female writers, who got upset at a woman of color who pointed out the fact that their entire writing staff was white and didn't get a chance to be on that staff. And the white woman responded back on Twitter saying, do you want to take my job? And it's like, wait a minute, you were just saying how there should be diversity on these writing staffs, but now you're saying diversity as long as you don't take my job. And so this is the thing that you run into. And I think that reeks of privilege as well. And I think she, in 2023 now, not back then when we were watching it, certainly you can see her journey as a bit of a privileged journey because she never pays for her obliviousness to her children. And Mary should absolutely be calling her out for that in this movie.
It's so weird because there is no question in my mind that everything you've described is intentional in 1964 when they made this movie. There is no question that she is oblivious, that she is trying to pawn off the kids on other people, that she is. And there's also no question that she's more sensitive to the kids than dad is, because that's shown very clearly. Like we talked about reaction shots before, when the kids are reading the ad, she loves it and wants that. She is doing more of the right things than dad. Right. But then, they have made her into a person. And it is, and I agree with you, is that sometimes people, I'm not just going to say white women, but all people on all sides put a strong demonstration of how passionate they are about a particular cause. Mm-hmm. And when further questioned or brought into things about their own life, they do not see the hypocrisy of the actions. Right. So Bert is going to clean some chimneys, and they're kind of a little bit scared looking up into the chimney. And he's saying, no, it's kind of a magical place. And in comes Mary telling Michael to be careful, but it's too late because he gets sucked right up through the chimney.
Oh, bother.
And then let's just jump ahead because we're all going to get sucked up through the chimney. Mary, of course, looking the most elegant as she flies through. I love once they decide to stay, because they're on the rooftops of London now, that she pulls out her little makeup kit and adds ashes to her face. That's a good bit.
Yeah, great.
Then they march off to look at the rooftops of London, and there are lots of good gags, as in all of Disney. You know, Michael gets soot on his face from a tube. They turn a pillar of smoke into stairs that they walk up to Big Ben. There's beautiful painting in the background. It's all lots of fun.
Yeah.
And then out of the other chimneys come a whole bunch more chimney sweeps, and we're about to jump into Step in Time.
Step in time! Step in time! Step in time! Step in time!
So here's how this song came about.
Okay.
Walt had some, what I only have written down as British advisors who have come to Walt to talk about England, I think.
Okay.
But as they are talking about him, they teach him a dance to the classic British folk song, Knees Up, Mother Down. And Walt loves this dance. And if you hear the song, which maybe I'll play for it a little bit right now, you will see the connection. Because he calls in the Sherman Brothers to listen to this song and watch this dance and says, we need something like this. And that is where Step in Time comes from.
Oh, wow.
The choreographers, I think I mentioned before, are Dee Dee Wood and her husband, Mark Bro. Mm-hmm. I don't really know how to pronounce his last name.
Bro.
And they were the assistants of a very famous film choreographer who is not Jerome Robbins or Michael Fosse, who happened to choreograph a movie that I know for a fact that you love that has a very raucous dance number that might remind you a little bit of Step in Time.
It's so you're saying it's not Seven Brothers.
It is Seven Brides.
Okay.
Because the choreographer is Michael Kidd.
Michael Kidd, yeah, who I love very much. And he was in It's Always Fair Weather with Gene Kelly and Dan Daly. Yeah. Yeah.
And can't you totally see the connection between Seven Brides and Step in Time?
100%. But you know what's going to break my heart to say?
What?
I think you can lose this number completely in the.
Oh no, John!
Yes, I'm sorry.
I love it.
I really do. It goes on for way too long. They go down into the living room and do all of that, and then the camera lingers on them forever, dancing in the street until they finally disappear. Then the camera lingers a few seconds even longer after that. And I thought I put my Steve Morris hat on and went, yeah, you could edit that out. You would not miss a thing to edit out Step in Time. It offers nothing to the movie, Steve. Don't lie.
You had to say you were putting on the Steve Morris editing hat. you had to go there. Because John,
I rarely put it on. I think it was our first time putting it on. Yeah.
it's comfy. I mean, it
is a comfy hat. Yeah.
So I was about to say, before you brought up the editing thing, I was about to say that I have agreed with you pretty much top to bottom in this whole conversation, and you are wrong about this one. But here's what I'll say. I will say this slightly differently. You are right. In the thing that I have said many times is that frequently, if you can take something and shorten it or cut it out of a movie and you would never miss it, then you should do that. And that 100% applies to this song. In fact, they had talked about cutting it down shorter. I think it was at about 7 minutes. And people were saying, we really should cut this down to 4 or something like that. And Walt said, no, make it longer. And I think it ended up at like 14. It is really long.
Yeah.
But I totally love it. And because I love the dancing, but you're right. Story-wise, you could cut this thing way down.
It offers nothing to any of the storylines. No.
Nope.
Bert and Mary do their thing. They already know. We know Bert has a bunch of chimney sweeps who are friends of his. If anything, the number causes us to have a sequel all these years later, which, by the way, I was watching about 30 minutes of it before we started recording. And Lin-Manuel Miranda's character is a friend of Bert's. And so so we know that Bert has a how can I say this? A chimney sweep brotherhood, and Lin-Manuel Miranda's character is a member of that brotherhood. So I guess it helps in that it launches that sequel. Of course, they didn't have an idea about it.
Yeah.
But to me, it offers nothing but a chance to show off. And getting to see Julie Andrews dance is nice and great. But it offers nothing because she's in these long knickers. But it offers nothing overall for what the story is being told between Bert and Mary, or between the kids and Bert and Mary. So
I had to say, this is a proper use of the Steve Morris editing hat. Everything you said, I can't find anything to disagree with. I like dancing, and so I like this particular dance number.
I like dancing too. I just don't see the logic of this one.
Well, and I will point out again something that's mentioned before: 0 real dance training for Dick Van Dyke prior to this movie.
That's hard to believe when you're watching it. It really is hard to believe. He seems like he's in step, and everyone else is trying to catch up.
He's killing it, and on not easy things. like this is not simple dancing. This is like a complicated thing. But as you see, it goes all over the rooftops, all sorts of stunts. They add part of when Walt said, let's add more. And they added all the stunts hanging off the, between the rooftops by their feet, jumping over things, lots of the cartwheels and vaulting, that all got added as they made this song longer.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned it. I love the moment of Michael trying to sneak out dressed as a chimney sweep.
That is hilarious. Oh my God. That's a very funny moment.
But needless to say,
look, Governor,
Dad is not pleased.
No. I mean, a bunch of strange men just drop soot all over his nice, clean house.
After he had a horrible, horrible time at the bank.
Right.
And he is about to, and I think this time he really will fire Mary Poppins in this moment.
Oh, yeah.
Except the phone rings.
Mr. Dawes, I'm most dreadfully sorry, sir, about what happened to the bank today. I can assure you that...
I think the moment of the kids watching their dad, who is powerful and terrifying, having to kowtow over the phone and be obviously scared and small, there's a very big kid moment where you start to see your dad as human.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We all go through it.
Yeah.
Right? We all have that moment. We can remember it. Yeah.
And they are calling him in to go to the bank at 9:00 because we know he is in deep trouble.
Yeah.
And now we get a scene which in a lot of ways is one of the most heartfelt scenes in the movie, is Bert cleaning up as Banks is trying to reckon with what has happened.
Yeah.
And he sings again his song, but now in a minor key, sounding very sad.
Before the mortar of his zeal has a chance to congeal, the cup is dashed from his lips, the flame is snuffed a-burning. He's brought to rack and ruin in his prime.
Feeling a little sorry for himself here.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean,
he should be.
Well, yes. I also think he's caught between the two worlds, because I do think this guy, as we see when he has his moment of explosion in the bank, always had this childish spirit inside of him, but it was stamped out by the world. And so in order to validate his decisions and his choices in life, he thinks his children should follow that path. Many parents fall into this trap. Certainly my dad fell into this trap. Like, you need to be this way if you're going to survive. You need to eat your feelings. You need to sit on them. Don't tell anybody how you feel about anything, and just grin and bear it and find a way to push through. Don't cause any trouble, and you'll make a lot of money and you'll get to where you need to go. Right. It was my mother, ironically, who was the more rebellious spirit, where I got that from, where I got my instincts from. And so it's just different. And so fathers think, because they know the world is tough and they love their children,
right?
They think, look, this is how I was able to survive. This is the wisdom I can give to you, right? And I don't mean every father, because a lot of fathers are supportive and take a chance, and their kids sometimes make it, sometimes don't. But most fathers are so scared that their children are going to suffer that they're like, just do what I did and you might survive, right? And I think with him here in this moment, we're seeing the beginnings of the cracks. And this is some really good writing with him. And like the fact that Mary's like, I don't explain anything. And he just kind of takes it, shocked by the kind of disrespect in his own home. He is losing everything all at once. The once king of the castle that he was in this home, because of Mary Poppins. Remember, he says that to Bert multiple times. Ever since Mary Poppins showed up, and Bert's being like, no, I understand where you're at, but that's not what's going on here. She's been great with the kids. And him losing his status at the job, everything is falling apart for him. And so the walls are coming down. And so I think that's what leads to the song. And it's so well sang in terms of the emotion by David Tomlinson in this moment.
So many thoughts. The first one is, I was thinking there's a thing that I've heard about many times with addicts, where when they stop drinking, all of their emotions come forward, because the drinking was what was putting a lid on all the things they really didn't want to feel.
Right.
I think Dad says everything was perfect until Mary Poppins showed up, but we know for a fact that everything wasn't perfect.
Right.
That things were chaotic and a mess, and the kids were acting out, and that the reason we had to have many, many nannies is because things weren't perfect.
Yes.
So I think that's why I kind of go, it's like, I think Dad was in denial about how bad things were.
Right.
And he was only doing exactly what you described your dad saying of suck it up and be tougher. Don't show any emotion. And be the dominant male. And that is the way to get through this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is not working for him.
Right.
And so now Bert, and through Bert, Mary Poppins is offering this alternative path of just a spoonful of sugar.
Yeah.
Is like, it's not that you have to feed the birds every day.
Right.
But to feed the birds every once in a while, to have the spoonful of sugar allows you to deal with the stuff that you're not able to deal with the way you're trying to deal with it.
Right. Because the lyrics of the song, medicine is your life.
Yeah.
And
work.
Yeah. The shit you have to eat in order to survive. Right. And back then there was no cherry flavored medicine. And so the spoonful of sugar is what you need in order to help you deal with the madness of the world and the unfairness of the world. And so that's why that song has much more resonance and meaning when you listen to it in the construct of the film.
As you know, and most people listening know, I've been making pretty large life changes over the last few years.
Yeah, yeah.
And one of the big things, I hadn't thought about it until this moment, but is to try to have a spoonful of sugar every once in a while.
Yeah.
To like actually carve out time for myself.
Right.
To do what I need, because I was working so fucking hard all the time.
Yeah.
And that was like, and it was funny. There's an expression that I would teach in class that I just always have loved, which is that in order to move fast, slow down. Is that frequently, and it would happen on movie sets all the time. You're so stressed and you're in such a rush. You're like, we got to move. And as soon as you're feeling like we got to move, that's the time to take a step back.
Right.
And go, wait, are we making the right decisions? Are we doing the right things? And frequently, that spoonful of sugar moment, that step back moment, that go out and have a conversation. We had a conversation earlier today where I said to you, I could use a conversation. I need to not think about the thing that I'm thinking about. And that helped me. That was my spoonful of sugar.
Exactly.
At that moment.
It's not necessarily feeding the birds. It could be meditation. It could be prayer. It could be a hike. It could be watching your favorite show or movie or scenes from that. That's your spoonful of sugar to help you deal with the world. Yeah.
Well, and it might be watching Mary Poppins or singing a song or, Well, and the thing too is your feed the birds or a spoonful of sugar is not the same as mine. They're not supposed to be.
Mary Poppins, she's the one what sings, a spoonful of sugar, that is all it takes. It changes bread and water into tea and cakes.
See, that's exactly what I mean. Changing bread and water into tea and cakes, indeed.
Look, I love what Bert does in the scene. Is it some passive-aggressive stuff? Yes, it is.
Maybe a little bit, yeah.
But it is so well done. I love the moment where...
She tricked me into taking Jane and Michael to the bank. That's how all the trouble started.
Tricked you into taking the children on an outing?
Yes.
Outrageous. A man with all the important things you have to do. Shameful.
And then he kind of butters him up by essentially saying the same things that Dad has been saying about you're a man in high position and you're esteemed. And then he says, or sings, I should say.
And when your little tykes are crying, you haven't time to dry their tears.
Man. Tomlinson's face as he's acting this realization is so great. So great. And this is why you cast someone like this. Because as stern, as mean as he's been throughout the movie, there's also an undercurrent where you don't, like subconsciously, you don't believe that he's this mean. Like he's got something else going on here. And this moment is where you start to see that, which had been bubbling below the surface a few layers down, start to come up to the surface. And I love it. I love the change in his face, realizing, the kids are the treasure.
I think one of the great lessons one learns as an adult is that shit that somebody did to you that you thought was directed at you probably wasn't. And that they were probably just living their life as they saw it and not aware of the hurtful things that they're doing. Dad wasn't trying to hurt his kids.
No.
Right. He just didn't see what was happening.
Yeah.
He didn't understand the effects that he was having. And Bert is making him see this. And it's funny. I never thought about it until this discussion, but this so sums up Disney and Disneyland and the basic philosophy, because we have Bert say, and this is, I think, what Disneyland is fighting against and what Disney is fighting against and what the whole idea behind Disney is fighting against. He says,
You've got to grind, grind, grind at that grindstone. Though childhood slips like sand through a sieve. And all too soon they've up and grown, and then they've flown, and it's too late for you to give.
You know, Steve, the cat's in the cradle.
Fuck
and
yeah.
Silver Spoon. Little Boy Blue and the Man in the Moon.
A song guaranteed to make me cry every time I hear it.
When you coming home, Dad? I don't know when.
Yep. He'd grown up just like me.
Yeah.
What's so when
just like me. Yeah.
When I first heard that song at 10 or 11 or 12, it hit me emotionally because my dad didn't have time to play catch with me. You know, I was like, Dad, when are you going to play catch? And he's like, I'm real busy. I'm tired from work. I got to do, you know, that was my relationship with my father.
Of course.
And now I'm a fucking adult. And then when I hear that with a son, what's so funny is that my son still says, when are you going to spend time with me? And I'm like, dude, I spent more time with you by the time you were 2 than my dad did my entire life.
But listen, you sound like your dad.
I know, but it's true. Well, this is the thing, man. That's why the song still makes me fucking cry.
I bet your dad said the same. You know, when I was
it might have been true. Look, my dad did not change my diaper. He didn't drive me to school. And what's really terrible, by the way, and I know this has been like the episode of digressions, but I have begged my son, like, hey, let's watch some Star Wars together. Let's watch some superhero stuff. And he says no. Like, and I'm just sitting there going, God, if my dad had said that he wanted to read some comic books or, play a video game with me, I would have jumped at the fucking chance.
Right. But he's not speaking your language. Look, I'm not anyway, but clearly your son has a different language that.
Oh yeah.
Right.
No, that's
what he's just like you had a different language than your father.
Yeah.
I'm sure your dad wanted his father to speak a certain language. It's the universal thing.
Yeah.
Of father to son. It's the hardest thing. But I tell you what, I hope you're ready for it, because he is going to one day walk up to you and go, Dad, I want to watch Star Wars with you, and you're going to be a mess. You're going to fucking be a mess.
Well, when I have watched, what was the one? So we watched Temple of Doom recently, because you and I talked about the live show.
Right.
We watched Mary Poppins.
Cats in the Cradle, man.
Yeah, this is a full Cats in the Cradle moment, and it definitely hits Dad. And then if we wanted to have the knockout blow come.
We're sorry about the tuppence. We didn't know it would cause you so much trouble.
And Michael holds out his hand and offers the tuppence to Dad.
Yeah, which is so great, because the kids now realize in their ability, as far as their abilities to rationalize a situation or look at it rationally, they realize they love their father more than the tuppence, clearly. And so they want to fix things because they never wanted negative things to happen to their father.
Well, and his reaction to this moment just it's everything is in them. Well, and this is why P.L. Travers was wrong in not wanting this thread in the movie. This is the movie.
Yeah, no, you're right. 100%.
This moment of Dad and the kids. And he walks out, and again, this movie's perfect in terms of leitmotifs, because we hear his leitmotif, but then we hear Feed the Birds as he's walking towards
him walking alone in the fog of London at night. I think is the most adult scene in the movie.
Oh yeah.
Right? Just him walking alone, lost in his thoughts, pondering his existence and his state of the world. And he is going to his impending doom at the hands of the Dawes family.
And he walks in, that's sort of military sounding. You remember how we were talking about in the previous episode that this is a game of inches, that Al Pacino thing?
Yeah.
Dad shining his shoe on the back of his pants leg is a perfect example of a tiny little moment that makes the movie a tiny little bit better,
100%.
I think this scene, the way it's set up with the board table, it's like Network.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you're 100% right. Yes. All the way down at the end of the table, the red and the spotlight. It's so good. Yeah.
And he comes in, and what we hear is a story about something in 1773, where an official of the bank unwisely loaned a large sum of money to finance a shipment of tea to the Americas. Yeah. And do you know what happened? And it's, of course, the Boston Tea Party.
Boston Tea Party, yeah.
From that time to this, there has not been a run on this bank. Until today.
Old Man Dawes goes, get on with it. And I love the sort of ceremonial destruction of his banker's uniform.
Yeah. Yeah. The breaking of the rose or whatever, or the poppy, whatever.
Yeah, and overextending the umbrella and punching through the hat. And then they ask him, what do you have to say?
Well, sir, they do say that when there's nothing to say, all you can say.
And he reaches into his pocket. We hear Feed the Birds playing. Yeah. He looks at the tuppence.
Confounded banks, I said, do you have anything to say?
Just one word, sir.
Yes?
Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
I think if you had a lesser actor than David Tomlinson, this would be a ridiculous scene.
Oh, yeah.
And he plays it so great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Laughing incoherently, telling this joke about which he puts, I love that he casts Jane and Michael in the joke about the man with the wooden Smith named leg, the wooden leg named Smith. And they think he's gone totally crazy. And he's even advancing on Old Man Dawes.
Banks, don't you dare strike my father.
He's so scared. That was my dad.
Banks, where are you going?
I don't know. I might pop through a chalk pavement picture and go for an outing in the country, or I might seize a horse off a merry-go-round and win the derby, or I might just fly a kite. Only Poppins would know.
This is a great moment where he completely embraces the Mary Poppins point of view in the world. Essentially, it is his spoonful of sugar moment.
Mm-hmm.
And he's so fantastic and, as you said, so natural in the change as it's going on. And he's almost experiencing the giddiness in real time as it's happening. So it's almost like as an actor, he's in two different places. And it's a wonderful performance from David. We've said many times already. But he is experiencing the giddiness as he's also giving into the giddiness at the same time. So it's fantastic to watch him play both of those things happening at the same time to him. Because he's almost surprised at what is happening, but he's enjoying it and watching it at the same time. And I love that. And so by the time he skips out of there, now the hole in the hat or the flappy part of the hat and the umbrella actually works for the way he's skipping out of there. So he's embraced these things that were meant to destroy him, and he's made them a positive. And I think that's great.
I'm going to ask this question. I'm trying to figure out how to ask it. I even think I already have a guess as your answer might be, but I'm going to ask the question anyway, which is, have you been in a situation where you felt trapped by a certain set of circumstances and saw no way out until suddenly you realized that nothing was holding you there at all and that you actually were free to leave?
Yes.
It's a giddy feeling.
It is a giddy feeling. And you almost feel weird.
Yeah.
Because there's a numbness that comes over you that the 2 or 3 times that's happened in my life, I have felt a strange coldness inside my body and a freeness at the same time. Almost, and the fear is the coldness, but also the desire to go through with it because it's like, this is so freeing to get out of this situation. I've spoken already about the terrible relationship I had before, the current relationship that I'm very much in love with. But the former relationship, the first time we broke up, I was the one that initiated it. It seemed so logical in the day that it finally came to me. I was like, I can't wait to get out of this situation, and boom, there was such a freedom. And I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, and the other shoe never dropped. And there was a freeing power in that, So yeah, I've had those moments.
I think we are so often, and this is certainly true of Mr. Banks, a slave to the structures that we find ourselves in.
Right, because we buy into them.
Yeah. And when it's just like, I actually can do what I want. I don't have to do this.
Right. I've been convinced that I have to do this, but I actually don't have to do this.
Yeah.
It happens to me all the time with the channel. I have to always be patient with myself with the channel, with my YouTube channel, because there are other people who are contemporaries of mine who move faster than I do, make more content than I do, or create more stuff than I do. But I'm going at my pace, and I have to be okay with that. And it's not an easy thing for me. It's always a struggle because everybody is like, no, you got to do this as soon as possible. Everything's going to fall apart. But I am just taking at my pace, and I'm trying to forgive myself whenever I miss something or I don't get on top of something quick enough, because I have to also honor what I'm feeling inside. So it's that kind of constant negotiation that I'm going through all the time with that. So, yeah.
Well, and again, this is, I know we said it a bunch of different ways, but this is that spoonful of sugar moment of going like, wait, I need this time for myself. And your channel, I am certain, is better for those decisions.
I think I 100% agree with you. It may frustrate me, but I also feel like I deliver better work when I'm more relaxed and ready to do it, as opposed to forced to do it or feel the pressure to do it. And that may mean that I don't grow as quickly as other channels, but I keep growing every month. And so to me, that's the positive result of it all,
Well, and for me, at least, I really care about making good stuff.
Yes.
And the rushing is frequently not the way to do that.
Right.
Rushing will make you get more stuff.
Yes.
But it won't necessarily make you make the good stuff. And I think, again, I know there's lots of digressions, but this movie is getting deeper and deeper the more we talk about it.
Yeah.
We've gone through The Cat's in the Cradle and The Silver Spoon.
Right.
And now Dad has fortunately had this epiphany when his kids are really little,
Yes.
Like Dad is going to be but even if the movie ended here, I think we know that Dad is going to be a happier person. We know that the kids are going to be happier. We know that household's going to be happier.
Right. Can I offer one more thing before we leave the bank?
Yes.
I love that the people surrounding the elder Dawes, including his son, ask Banks what he's going to do. As a way of being like, what are you going to wait? We have fired you. You should be depressed. Everybody else we've fired has been depressed and despondent and walked out of here sad, and we haven't cared. Why are you so relaxed? Why are you so happy? What are you going to do? Right. And I think it comes from a place of envy, which I think we see pay off later on when we see the younger Dawes and the kite and the conversation with Mr. Banks there. But like, they're all surprised, and he is their entryway out of the way of thinking that the old generation has. And I think he is their spoonful of sugar. I think he is their wake-up call in a way to realize there's more out there than just what they've been doing in the bank.
Well, I'm really glad you brought this up, because it totally relates to what we were talking about before in terms of power. Is my power over you is that you're going to be scared of me and that you're going to be sad if I fire you.
Right.
If you act happy when I fire you, that has taken away my power. Like,
right.
What am I? And what's interesting too, again, I'm really glad you brought this up.
Yeah.
Old Man Dawes is a terrible person, and he has created a terrible atmosphere in this bank where everyone lives in fear. I think they're all scared of him,
Yeah, man. I mean, it's a horrible existence. This is what I had when I worked at Kaleido, working for the guy who used to own them. It was constant fear of my job being taken from me, which that's how he managed consistently, not with everybody, but with certain people. He didn't mind holding certain things over you. He would ask us to spy on each other, to come tell him if someone is loafing at the job or not doing the job or things like that. It was so frustrating to deal with. And every time there was a question about what I was doing with my time, what am I creating? What am I doing? Why am I taking so long? So it was that power. So that when they let me go, after the month of like, just what am I going to do with my life? When I realized I was happier without that job than I was in that job, it changed everything. Because living in that existence where one person controls your entire feeling about yourself is a horrible existence. And we see it happening again now, Steve, with all these owners and all these companies and boards trying to force people to go back to work in these offices so they can control them and retain power over them, with the lie that people are less productive at home, which is there's not one study credible study that proves that in any noticeable way. But people need to feel this control over other people, and they'll find it however they can find it,
Well, and relate what you just said about having a boss who was used fear and pushing you to do more and all that, and the environment that felt like, and the thing you said before about reminding yourself to slow down on your channel, like that voice, that boss voice, or that's in your head still,
That's a fantastic point, man. Yeah.
Well, and again, this goes to, we have a father and son relationship in the owners of the fucking bank.
Right.
Like, did old man Dawes sit there and make sure that his kids were happy when they were little kids? He did not.
No.
Old man Dawes ran his household the way Mr. Banks thinks he wants to run his household at the beginning of this movie.
Yeah.
My house should be run like a bank with discipline and rules.
And my last point on this is, Steve, this is the first time that Mr. Banks actually has power in his life. This moment.
Yes, I agree.
Walks away because he's walking away willingly, and he's walking away on his terms.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that makes him joyful.
Yes.
And then, of course, strangely enough, we have one more odd little, redemptive moment. After he leaves, old man Dawes muttering to himself.
Yes.
A wooden leg named Smith. A wooden leg named Smith.
And I love, again, Dick Van Dyke is so great at you could see the wheels, the very rusted old humor wheels that have probably never been used with this guy, slowly rotating into the right position to him understand the joke. And when he understands the joke, he starts to laugh. And when he starts to laugh, he floats up into the air.
Father! Father, come down! Daddy!
Now, I will tell you, the son is played by Arthur Mallet as a very young man. And Arthur Mallet is Toodles in Hook, who can't find his marbles. That's him.
Oh, wow.
So a nice little Disney connection there, because Hook obviously is a Peter Pan thing. But yeah, so when I found that out, I was like, my God, he doesn't look anything like the guy. But of course, that was him as a young man. So
he has a great voice too. He has such a good voice. And now we see that the wind is changing because Mary Poppins said that when the wind changes directions, that's when I was going to leave.
Mary Poppins, don't you love us?
And what would happen to me, may I ask? If I loved all the children I said goodbye to?
Does she love them?
Yes, which the parrot calls her out on in a little bit. Yes, she does.
Downstairs, our constable is calling the police because Mr. Banks is not shown up. And again, we have these weird jokes about maybe he killed himself by jumping off a bridge.
Yeah, that is super weird.
Super weird. And I love that he does show up and Mom's first words to him are,
Oh, George, you didn't jump in the river. How sensible of you.
Jane! Michael!
Your father's calling you.
It doesn't sound like Father.
Jane! Michael!
Run along, Spitspot.
You won't go, Mary Poppins, will you?
Again, Julie Andrews plays this so well. Of she has been saying, I don't love you. She's been saying, I'm leaving you. She's been totally cold. And she says,
Spitspot.
And there's that emotion under the line that's just perfect.
Yeah, agreed.
That tells us she loves them.
Agreed.
They run downstairs. It totally makes me cry. It's making me cry thinking about this moment because it's so well set up.
I heard your quiver, yeah.
You did. And I tried to hide the quiver.
I know you did, Spitspot, but I heard it.
But Spitspot got me, and Dad pulling out that kite.
Yeah.
And them going,
He mended it! It's wonderful. However did you manage it?
Well, how did the movie start? They got lost chasing their kite. It's not a very good kite.
Yeah.
Maybe with a little help, we could make it better. And that is what Dad has now done.
Yeah, it's their relationship. He has mended their relationship. Yeah.
The Sherman Brothers wanted a song to end the movie with that the whole audience would want to sing along with. I think they completely succeed. And again, I go to what's my favorite song in the movie. I don't know the answer.
Right.
Because every new song I go, oh, that could be my favorite song.
Right.
Let's Go Fly a Kite could totally be my favorite song.
With tuppence for paper and strings, you can have your own set of wings. With your feet on the ground, you're a bird in flight. With your fist holding tight to the string of your kite. Oh, let's go fly a kite up to the highest height. Let's go fly a kite and send it soaring up through the atmosphere, up where the air is clear. Oh, let's go fly a kite.
And you know what's interesting too? He's not doing the Rex Harrison speak singing thing.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah.
He's really singing this song.
Right.
And the whole family joins in, and Cook and Ellen join in. I like the little joke with the constable who's still on the phone.
That's what I said, sir. Go fly a kite. Oh, no, sir, no. I don't mean you personally.
So listen up, ladies and gentlemen, especially those of you on the East Coast. The actor who plays the constable is Arthur Treacher. And for those of you who know what I'm about to say, yes, that Arthur Treacher. For those of you of a certain age, you know that Arthur Treacher was the name of a fish and chips chain restaurant in America. And yes, it was named, he lent his name to this fast food chain. They opened 500 locations in the United States. Arthur Treacher's Fish and Chips. It was before Long John Silver's had a fish and chip store or restaurant and chain. And it was because he was this perfect butler since the 1920s when he moved to America and all these films and TV shows that they reached out to him to see if they could use his name, this fish and chips place, to name it Arthur Treacher's Fish and Chips. He did, and it became a massive success, as I just said. And he got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
I knew nothing of this.
I used to eat at Arthur Treacher's Fish and Chips all the time. Dad used to take us down. It wasn't where we lived in Virginia. We had to drive like 20 to 30 minutes down to Arlington or Alexandria and eat at the fish and chips there. And I loved the fish and chips. It was this dark forest green kind of thing with yellow. So it basically looked like an English cottage, and it was green, dark forest green and yellow windows. And I loved it. And it was the best fish and chips I ever had in my life.
I wish it still existed. I remember going, because Long John Silver's wasn't a thing that was really near me very much. So whenever I saw one, I would go to one just because it was so odd. But clearly this is the classier one.
Please, this is the much classier one. Yeah. You don't put this in a mall. You don't put Arthur Treacher fish and chips.
Because fish and chips are delicious.
Yes, they are.
They all head out singing into the street. I love that Mary is watching them from the window. And now Bert, who has been a screever and a chimney sweep and a one-man band, is a kite salesman. And they all start singing, and then young Mr. Dawes shows up and says,
"Oh, there you are, Banks. I want to congratulate you. Capital bit of humor. Wooden leg named Smith. Or Jones, whatever it was. Father died laughing."
And I love this sort of like, wait, what?
Wait, what? Father died? He died?
I'm still reeling from your thought that Mary Poppins intentionally killed this man.
I'm just saying, this is an old vengeance.
Oh, I'm so sorry, sir.
Oh, no nonsense. Nothing to be sorry about. Never seen him happier in his life. He left an opening for a new partner.
Wow, that was a quick turnaround. And then we have and it is the one thing that maybe I don't love as much in the movie is Mary Poppins talking to her parasol, to her umbrella.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of an odd moment.
Yeah. Maybe because we haven't seen the parrot talk to her, right? Through a majority of the film. So, yeah.
You know, they think more of their father than they do of you.
That's as it should be.
Well, don't you care?
Practically perfect people never permit sentiment to muddle their thinking.
Is that so? Well, I'll tell you one thing, Mary Poppins. You don't fool me a bit.
because he knows that she really does love those kids.
Yeah.
And she closes the mouth of the parrot, and she opens up her parasol, and she flies away.
Goodbye, Mary Poppins. Don't stay away too long.
And as we watch her fly away over the painting of London, we get our credits. I love, by the way, that one of the credits is for Old Man Dawes and is the scrambled Dick Van Dyke credit. That's a lot of fun. And that is the end of Mary Poppins.
Yeah.
So it was released on August 27th, 1964, is the highest grossing film of 1964. It was the biggest hit in Disney history.
Wow.
Without Mary Poppins, Disneyland would have had no monorail.
Wow. How? Explain.
Well, they were out of money for Disneyland, and Mary Poppins and Walt really wanted this monorail.
Oh, wow.
And when Mary Poppins came in with all sorts of money, he said, "Boys, we got our monorail.
We got trouble. It starts with a capital T."
Just thinking about that. Monorail. So here's a great story. It is the Golden Globes.
Oh.
Both Julie Andrews and Audrey Hepburn are nominated for Best Actress. Julie Andrews wins the award.
Right.
And she gets up on stage and says, "I would like to thank the wonderful man who made this possible." And everyone in the audience, of course, thinks she must be talking about Walt Disney.
Yeah.
And she said, "Jack Warner, because if you hadn't cast Audrey Hepburn in My Fair Lady, I never would have won this award."
Oh, man.
And Jack Warner thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, of course it's hilarious. Yeah.
But that is like a gangster joke right there.
Listen, don't let Julie's nice voice fool you.
Yeah.
Julie was a gangster. Julie was a gangster, man. Like, you hear some of the stories about Julie Andrews. She was a gangster.
She was, well, I mean, honestly, you don't get to be a Broadway star singing those musicals without being tough. That's hard, you know.
Yeah, she's tough.
It received 13 Oscar nominations. Wow. Picture, actress, visual effects, score, song, art direction, cinematography, costume, design, directing. Was also nominated for adapted score treatment, which I don't quite understand.
Yeah.
The other best pictures that year are Beckett, Dr. Strangelove, Zorba, the Greek, and My Fair Lady, which is actually the movie that won.
Right.
I totally like My Fair Lady. Yeah. I think Mary Poppins might be a better movie top to bottom.
Probably, but it ain't the best picture. Strangelove is the best picture, right? Wouldn't you say?
I don't know how to answer that question.
What?
I think Strangelove is the most important. I don't know. I literally am going, I don't know how to answer that question. I think in terms of a visionary filmmaker, yes, Strangelove is the best picture.
Okay.
In terms of the most beloved picture that's something important too.
Right. Beloved, of course. Absolutely.
You know,
100%, yeah.
I think Rex Harrison's performance in My Fair Lady is amazing.
Sure.
But I don't think My Fair Lady, I love My Fair Lady, but I don't think it holds up quite as well as Mary Poppins does.
Yeah. I agree.
But it did win for actress, editing, score, visual effects, and Chim Chimaree won the song. P.L. Travers, despite what you might see when you watch Saving Mr. Banks, hated the movie, felt that she had sold out, and refused. Disney, of course, wanted to make sequels and other things, and she refused to ever let Disney touch anything of hers again.
Wow.
Yeah.
But they did do a sequel.
After she died.
After she died. Whoa.
Over My Dead Body. Yeah, okay.
It took that long. Wow.
So I don't know that I have final thoughts on this movie because I feel like we've discussed so much, but I didn't really think this movie was deep, and yet you and I had very deep conversations.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't think that this movie said a lot about society in the 60s, and yet the more I think about it, the more I think there is a connection between what happened 4 years after this movie came out. You know, like I do really see it. Yeah. I didn't think of this movie as symbolic about Disney itself, but the more we talked about A Spoonful of Sugar and the ideas of working hard but taking moments for joy, the more I go, oh, that's all of Disney.
Yeah.
And the songs in the Sherman Brothers that I know I said in part one, I think I disrespected. I've kind of gone, it is one banger song after another in this musical. And I have come to appreciate this even more through this conversation. So I've loved this conversation, and it's made me love the movie more.
Ditto.
What are your final thoughts?
Yeah, I think I would have to agree with that 100%. Yeah, my final thoughts on this, I think this is one of those classics that we could take apart as we did in our show and in our 2 episodes and find the flaws in it, right? Because nothing is perfect. I don't care what anybody says. There's no perfect movie's ever been made. I've made this clear, very clear multiple times. But it does not mean that this movie isn't still worthy of being beloved by so many people and has a fantastic message, pulls off a miracle feat by making the titular character have literally almost no arc in the movie, yet everything about it feels magical and fun and joyful and interesting and challenging. And yes, you can see all the special effects now, especially if you watch it in high def. Yeah, but yet it still has a charm to it that endures. And I think that's why this is one of those films that's passed on from generation to generation to generation, because you can take a different message away from it if you're looking for one. But at the end of the day, it simply entertains you. It embraces the magic of childhood and shows you that there is a way to have balance in your life, and you will have a much happier life if you have this balance. And sometimes it takes a woman flying out of the sky to help you to remember that.
Well, I wish that everybody has whatever they need flying out of the sky to help them learn that lesson and can have a spoonful of sugar and feed the birds and whatever that means for them, because I think we all need that. Life is pretty hard right now. And I think we could all use a little bit of Mary Poppins and a little bit of Bert too. Let's not.
Come on now. Yeah, absolutely.
Bert's a damn rock star. So that is what we think about Mary Poppins. Of course, we would love to hear your thoughts. You could visit us on Facebook, do a search for the Cine-Files we're Cine_Files on Twitter, Cine-Files Podcast on Instagram. Of course, we'd love your reviews on Apple Podcasts, and you can subscribe there as well. And maybe we'll read another 5-star review if we get some more in the future, because it's one of the great ways we love of hearing from you. And of course, the best way to contact us is through our Patreon page at patreon.com/thecine-files. For as little as $1 a month, you can get 1 month's upcoming schedule of the show. We've just released our schedule for August. We're working on our schedule for September. And at the high end of our Patreon tiers is who we discuss that schedule with, and that is the Cine-Files Advisory Board, who came up with Mary Poppins as a movie that we would do. And of course, if you want to watch Mary Poppins again, the best way to do that would be to stream it or buy it through our website, cinefiles.net. And if you want to reach me, you could do it at SR Morris on Twitter, SR Morris1 on Instagram. John, how would they find you?
Yeah, you can always reach me at The Roca on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, The Outlaw Nation on Twitch, and my YouTube channel, youtube.com/John Roca Says.
And I think that is it for this week. We will be back next time for another great film right here on The Cine-Files.